Have you ever asked yourself, why don't I enjoy being around people the way I used to? Maybe you used to love gatherings, conversations, the sound of a full room, but now you find yourself pulling back, choosing quiet over chatter, stillness over small talk. If that question stirs something inside you, I want you to know you're not alone. So many people in their 60s, 70s, even 80s go through this same shift. It's not bitterness, it's not loneliness, and it's definitely not giving up on people. Something much deeper is happening. It's called inner change, and it's not a weakness, it's wisdom. See, as we grow older, we begin to see the world and our place in it differently. We no longer feel the need to be everywhere with everyone. We start honoring our time, our peace, and our energy. And that's not strange. In fact, it might be one of the most healing decisions we ever make. In this video, we're going to walk through 6 deeply rooted reasons why you may have started pulling away from people even if you once thrived in social settings. These aren't shallow guesses. They're truths lived and felt by many but rarely spoken aloud. Some reasons may surprise you. Some may hit close to home. But all of them will help you understand yourself better and perhaps offer a little grace for the space you've chosen. So if you've ever wondered, what's changed in me? I invite you to stay with me. This journey isn't about judgment, it's about understanding. Let's begin. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever pulled away from someone not out of anger, but out of quiet self-protection? You see, over time, we don't just collect memories. We collect scars. Some are tiny, a missed call, a careless word, but others, they run deeper. Moments when you opened up, gave your trust only to be left hurt or dismissed. It happens gradually, and eventually you stop putting yourself out there so easily. Not because you're bitter, but because you've learned not everyone deserves to stand close to your heart. Take Chloe, for example. She's 81 now. She used to host dinner parties every weekend. Her home was filled with laughter, music, clinking glasses. But after her husband passed, a few friends disappeared. One broke her trust. Another stopped showing up altogether. No dramatic falling out, just a slow drip of little disappointments. Now she prefers a quiet evening with her thoughts to forced company. There's something that forms in us over time, a kind of gentle armor. We become more discerning, more protective of our peace. Psychologists call it relational fatigue. When maintaining connection starts to feel more draining than nourishing. It's especially common for those who've loved deeply and been hurt quietly. But here's what's important to remember. Pulling back doesn't mean you've become cold. It means you've become wise. You've lived enough to know that your time, your energy, even your silence are precious, and they shouldn't be handed out carelessly. So if you've started choosing solitude over certain people lately, don't feel guilty. Feel grateful that you now understand your own worth enough to protect it. Have you noticed that as we get older, small talk just doesn't feel the same? You might sit through a conversation full of weather updates, gossip, or filler words, and leave feeling emptier than when you arrived. Not because you're unfriendly, but because your soul is craving something deeper, something real. There's a shift that happens with age. In your younger years, you may have gone along with it all, smiling politely, nodding at stories that didn't matter, trying to keep up appearances. But now, that effort feels exhausting. Henry, 76, used to be the life of the party, always the first to arrive, the last to leave, and the one everyone wanted to talk to. But lately, he finds more joy sipping tea on his back porch than attending crowded gatherings. He says, "I'm done talking just to fill the silence." And you know what? He's not alone. As we grow older, we no longer feel the need to impress, to entertain, or to perform. We value sincerity over sound, stillness over noise. A quiet evening with a meaningful book or a deep, honest conversation now carries more weight than hours of empty interaction. This isn't isolation, it's intention. It's choosing who and what gets your energy and knowing that your peace doesn't need permission. We live in a world that often mistakes silence for sadness. But sometimes choosing peace is the most joyful thing we can do. So if you've been skipping the loud dinners, the buzzing parties, or the endless small talk, that's okay. You're not withdrawing, you're awakening. You're making room for what truly matters. And there's real beauty in that. Have you ever been in a room full of people and still felt completely invisible? You try to share a story, a moment from your life that shaped you, but instead of interest, you're met with a distracted smile or worse, a glance down at a phone. It's not that they're trying to be rude. It's just somewhere along the way, the connection slipped. Ella 79 knows this feeling well. She was a school teacher, a mother of 5, a woman who once juggled work home and volunteer work with grace. She used to tell her grandchildren about those years, how she made every penny count, how dinner was on the table by 6 no matter what. But lately, she says, they don't really ask anymore. And that hurts. Not because she needs praise, but because she longs to be seen, not just as grandma, but as the full, rich person she still is. There's a name for this feeling: emotional invalidation, when your thoughts, your feelings, your stories are quietly dismissed. Not through harsh words, but through silence, disinterest, or constant interruption. Over time, that silence grows heavy. You start speaking less, not because you have less to say, but because you've learned it's easier not to be ignored. But here's what I believe: your voice still matters. Your stories still matter. And if the people around you don't always listen, that doesn't mean your value has faded. Maybe the answer isn't shouting louder. Maybe it's finding softer spaces, people who truly care, or even just a journal, a garden, a moment of prayer where you feel heard again. Because your heart carries decades of wisdom, and just because the world has gotten louder doesn't mean your quiet truth should be lost in the noise. You still deserve to be understood. You still deserve to be honored. There's a quiet fear many of us carry as we grow older. It's not just the fear of illness or loss. It's the fear of becoming a burden. You start thinking twice before asking for help. You hesitate to call even when you really want to hear someone's voice. You skip the invitation because you don't want to feel like the reason someone had to rearrange their day. Sound familiar? Herbert, 84, knows this feeling well. He used to spend every weekend with his daughter and grandkids' backyard barbecues, Sunday breakfasts. But now, with his mobility slowing down, he finds himself saying no more often. When asked why, he simply said, "They've got their own lives. I don't want to get in the way." The truth is, Herbert doesn't feel unwanted. He just doesn't want to be a responsibility. He wants to be loved freely, not out of obligation. And that's something so many of us quietly wrestle with. We've spent our lives being the strong one, the caregiver, the dependable one. So when the time comes that we need support, it can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. But here's the thing: no one tells us enough. Your value has never depended on how independent you are. It comes from who you are, not what you can do for others. The people who love you, they want to be there. They want to show up not because they have to, but because they care. Still, that fear lingers. So we stay quiet. We stay home. We shrink our needs so we don't take up space. But maybe the bravest thing we can do now is let ourselves be loved. To accept help not as weakness, but as connection. Because needing each other at any age is one of the most human things in the world. Not every friendship ends with a fight. Sometimes it just fades. No harsh words, no big moments. Just fewer calls, less time, longer pauses between visits. Until one day you realize that person who used to be part of your everyday life just isn't anymore. And it's not because you stopped caring. It's because life shifted, and so did you. Victoria, 73, remembers her best friend from high school. They used to take long walks every week. They'd talk for hours about everything and nothing. But over time, those walks became once a month, then once a year, then not at all. No argument, no falling out, just new routines, new chapters. She told me, we still care. But I think we've said everything we needed to say. And honestly, that's okay. So many of our relationships are built on shared seasons, raising kids, working the same job, living next door. But when those seasons pass, sometimes the closeness passes too. That doesn't mean the bond wasn't real. It just means it served its time. And now you've grown into someone who needs different kinds of connection, or maybe more space. Letting go can feel sad, but it can also be a quiet form of self-respect. You're not clinging to what was. You're honoring what is. Because holding on to a friendship that no longer fits just out of habit can feel lonelier than being alone. So if you've noticed a few relationships fading lately, know this: you're not giving up. You're evolving. And sometimes growth means making peace with distance and allowing new forms of connection to find you when the time is right. There comes a moment in life when solitude stops feeling empty and starts feeling full. When you're younger, being alone can feel like you're missing out. You're expected to be seen at gatherings, family events, always showing up, always on. But as the years pass, you begin to notice something beautiful in the quiet. James 82 used to be the host everyone loved. Big barbecues, full tables, laughter that echoed through the yard. But now he finds more joy sitting on his porch in the early morning, just watching the birds. He told me, I've spent years listening to other people. I think now it's time I listen to myself. That's not loneliness. That's peace. We spend so much of life giving to careers, to children, to partners, to friends. And then one day we wake up and realize we've rarely just been with ourselves. And surprisingly, we like the company. There's no more pressure to explain who we are. No need to entertain. No rush to fill the silence. Instead, we move at our own rhythm. We read what we want, go where we feel like going, rest when our body says so. We begin to understand that our value doesn't come from being everywhere for everyone. It comes from being whole even when we're on our own. So if you found yourself pulling back lately and finding joy in quiet mornings, long walks, or simply doing nothing at all, celebrate that. You're not withdrawing from life. You're finally stepping into it with full presence, with deep peace, and with a heart that knows its own worth. There's something that shifts deep inside us as we grow older. Time, once so easy to give away, suddenly feels sacred. We realize that every day isn't just another day. It's a gift, and it deserves to be spent with care. Not everyone earns your time anymore. Not every event deserves a yes, and not every conversation needs your presence. That's not selfish, it's wise. As we age, we stop chasing what we should do and start asking ourselves, what actually feeds my soul? Marion 75 used to be the kind of woman who did it all. Always busy, always saying yes, always trying to make everyone else happy. Now she spends her mornings in silence, meditating, journaling, and making one meaningful phone call to her oldest friend. She told me, I don't live by other people's schedules anymore. I live by the rhythm of my heart. And maybe that's the real gift of this season of life. We stop performing, we stop pleasing, and we start prioritizing what matters most. For some, that looks like painting or gardening. For others, it's classical music, a walk in nature, or a slow breakfast with someone who truly listens. And the truth is, the quieter life becomes the more we hear what really matters. You're not pulling away from life. You're redefining it. You're spending your time like it's the rare treasure it is because it is. So if you've been saying no more often lately, if you're choosing fewer people, fewer plans, but deeper meaning, know this, that's not withdrawal, that's wisdom. And it may be the most honest, most beautiful version of living you've ever known. If you found yourself stepping back from people lately, if your days feel quieter, your phone rings less, and your calendar is lighter, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not fading, you are transforming. This shift towards solitude, towards stillness, it's not something you have to explain or defend. It's a sign of wisdom, a quiet, sacred knowing that your time, your presence, and your peace are precious. Some may not understand why you're less available, why you've stopped attending every gathering, or why your voice has softened. But the truth is, you've earned this stillness. You've lived, given, supported, carried others for decades. Now, it's okay to carry yourself. You're not lonely just because you're alone. You're not disconnected just because you're discerning. And you're not invisible even in silence. You are seen, you are valued, you are part of a quiet wave of souls who've realized that meaning isn't found in noise, but in depth. So whether you find peace in a garden, at a window in prayer, or simply within your own thoughts, know that you're exactly where you need to be. Let this be your gentle reminder. You don't need to prove your worth through busyness. You don't need to fill every moment with someone else's presence. You are whole exactly as you are. And in this chapter of life, maybe the most beautiful thing you can do is honor that wholeness. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this message spoke to you, I'd love to hear what part resonated the most. Drop a comment below. Your story matters more than you know. And if you haven't yet, consider subscribing. Together, we're creating a space where being real, being wise, and simply being is more than enough.